All right, we're going to get started with this session. Thank you everybody for coming in today. We are going to be talking about writing for employment. We'll introduce ourselves first so you know who we are, what our work is, and why we're here talking about why writing is so important to gain employment. I am Laura Caulk. I work in human resources here at the college. My position is an HR generalist. I do a wide variety of responsibilities in human resources with different employee groups on campus. But one of my priorities, or one of my functions that I do, is recruiting, interviewing, and hiring. So that's part of what we're going to be talking about today, is that writing portion of why it's so important for gaining employment.
So I'm Danielle Flaumenhaft. I also work in human resources. Laura and I kind of tag team the HR generalist position. So she handles some of our employee groups on campus, and I handle the other ones. And so kind of similar responsibilities for different types of employment on campus. And so looking forward to working with you guys today.
All right, and as you can see, we don't have any formal presentation up here. Instead, what we want this to be is an interactive process with all of you. So if you have questions at any time, feel free to jump in and ask us questions, and we'll hopefully answer to the best of our ability for you at that time. So we'll get started first today. Each of you received 2 different resumes. Did everybody receive copies of these? Yeah? All right. We're going to give you a few minutes to look these over, read through the cover letters and the resume. What we're going to do with this exercise is flip the process a little bit for you. So instead of you being the person that's applying for the position, you're the person that's reviewing the resumes for this position. And this is an accounting position is what we're looking at. So we'll give you a few minutes to look those over, and then we'll reconvene and have a conversation about those afterwards. All right, has everybody had the chance to review both of them, or do you need a little bit more time? You're good? Okay, excellent. So if you were the hiring manager for this staff accountant position, who would you be interested in moving forward for an interview based on the information that you were provided with today? What was that? John? Okay, and what was the reason?
He had more information on his, and he also had an actual email account, whereas his was kind of like old email account, I'm saying, and it was formatted like a resume with the name in the center, whereas hers wasn't, and he kind of gave examples of what he did, like in the first he said W-2s, where she didn't say that on her resume, nor did she explain it in her email, whereas he explained both of them.
Excellent, thank you. So if you couldn't hear what she had said, one of the things that she pointed out was a professional email address. You can see on Melissa's resume, her email address is partygirl@email.com, where John's is johndoe.jr@email.com. So as the person who's reviewing resumes, seeing these come through, that professional email address is really important. You want to make sure you have a personal professional email address, not using your employer's email address if you're currently employed, but excellent point on that. The other thing that you pointed out was that John provided a lot more detail. So one thing she mentioned was, specifically John Doe mentioned experience doing W-2s, where Melissa didn't explain that specifically. So while she mentioned she prepared tax returns, she doesn't identify exactly what she had done with that work. So that's an excellent point. Also, you mentioned the format in general looked a little more resume-like, what you would normally see for a resume. Can you explain that a little bit more, what you were seeing there?
Like her name should probably be more centered, and it kind of
Okay.
gets folded, the email text and the regular text, and she also doesn't have like the actual dates, she just has like the year on them, where she should have like as close to the date as she can remember.
Excellent, yes. So one of the items that she mentioned was the years on the resumes. So Melissa had only identified the year, so 2006 to present, or she was a tax accountant and intern in 2006. What that doesn't tell the person who's reviewing it, which is you currently, is how much experience she actually has in that position. where with John Doe, it's January 2006 to April 2006. So we know that he has that 4-month experience in that position, where we're just guessing with Melissa. So we want to leave it where there's no assumptions that you're making. Instead, we know exactly what this person has experience with. So very good observation, thank you. Anybody else? Would they hire Melissa or John? Yeah.
I would hire John as well. One of the things with Melissa, with her cover letter, she basically doesn't tell you anything. It's just basically a document to introduce her cover letter. I mean, her resume.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an excellent point. So what she had pointed out was Melissa's cover letter doesn't really tell us any information. It's only saying, I'm interested in this position, here's my resume. That was it. Where with John, he went in a little bit more depth. He didn't re-explain what is on his resume, but he provided more information related to what the responsibilities of the staff accountant position would be. So as you can see on here, the writing and the description that somebody provides is very important. And so that's what we want to talk about today, is why writing for employment could be a benefit for you if you are doing it thoroughly for your resumes. So, okay, any other items that you noticed on the resumes or cover letters? No? Okay. Danielle, did we miss anything on there?
No, I think that's a great start. I mean, I think more things will come up. You know, we can always find other things, but we're going to go to our next part, which is a checklist that we created. And Laura will pass those out to everyone to kind of help, you know, as you're preparing a resume or cover letter, as you're preparing to do a job search, to kind of help you go through some different items, just an easy checklist. So first, what is a resume? Who can tell me what a resume is? Anybody? Yeah.
Basically, it's a summary of your education, employment, experience to show a potential employer that you can do the job that they want done.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great thing. So a summary of what your experience have been and that why you're qualified for the job. That's great. And what does a cover letter do? Anybody know what a cover letter is for? Anyone?
Without looking at the sheet?
Yeah, without looking at the sheet.
I see everybody's eyes looking down.
Cover letter? Anybody? Want to take a guess? Go ahead. That's fine.
It's similar to the resume, but it gives you the opportunity to actually explain in a more flowing written format why you would be good for that position, stuff that you can't necessarily put in the resume.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So for us, and you can see it on your handout here, I'm not going to read you guys word for word, but for a resume, we really want to talk about the summarizing of your qualifications, that this really shows an employer why you would be good for the position, you're able to communicate what you've done, and then we list here that the resume should include at minimum your education, your employment history, and experiences relevant to that job. There are other things you can include in your resume, and we can kind of talk through those, but at minimum you want to make sure those things, because typically those are the things people are looking at when they decide whether or not to move you forward in a process. When it comes to the cover letter, it's something that would always accompany a resume. So you wouldn't ever just submit a cover letter. You may have a job that you just submit a resume for, but a lot of times positions are asking for a cover letter and a resume. And so the cover letter should really complement your resume. It shouldn't totally copy what's in your resume. So you don't want to write word for word everything that's already in your resume. You want to add more to it. So if we use the example of doing tax documents, like if you just list a few tax documents on your resume, you can go into more detail about I worked maybe one-on-one with people to do tax documents, or I've had to process 3,000 for this many employees, or whatever that might be. Can be more information that's added to your cover letter. Okay? Questions on resume or cover letter? Okay, so for our next part, so does your resume and cover letter, we're gonna have some different things that we think you should be thinking about when you're writing that cover letter and resume. So does it correlate to the job you're applying to? So making sure you go through and really tweak it and customize it to the position you're applying to. So you might have information that is general accounting information. I'm going to keep going with accounting because that's what we have on here. But this one is specifically about tax accounting. So you want to make sure everything on there relates to tax accounting or accounting and not another type of accounting that isn't relevant. So this is another big one. Does it include 5 keywords from the job description? So one of the things that we do when we're reviewing resume and cover letters is making sure people actually know what the job is that they applied to. So there might be that really great descriptive word that was in the job description. You want to make sure that that is somewhere in your cover letter or resume to make sure that you actually know this was the job I'm applying to, this is how it fits with my position.
Do you have an idea how you might find out what those keywords may be? No? No ideas?
Go ahead.
Anybody?
She's got her hand up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, the position description itself will have the keywords, but if you're not quite sure what those keywords are, if you look at the field in general, you'll start seeing the keywords used in the field to identify them.
That's a great point. So she mentioned specific to the job description, we'll give you some of those ideas of what those keywords would be. You can look in what we call the regular functions of the position, so what the irregular responsibilities are. Mm-hmm. Generally, the top 5, 6 are going to be the primary responsibilities that you have within that job. Everything else is still very important, but that's usually the primary. So look within those first few bullet points of what the responsibility of that position is. You can also look at what the qualifications are, what they are requiring of an individual. Let's say, for instance, because it's a tax accountant, they have to be excellent with the 10 keypad, which is the number key on the side of your keyboard. If that individual has tested and they are aware of how fast that they can type or accurately they can type on that 10 key, they can provide that information too. So, looking at the resume, but the other idea that she had was if you can't find it on the job description, because there are some job descriptions that aren't very descriptive, look at the actual field. So look outside of that specific job to see what they're looking for in those types of positions. So great ideas. Thank you.
Yeah. You also want to make sure you're clearly putting on there how you meet the minimum qualifications. So talking about those the requirements again, if it asks for a certain type of degree or training, you want to make sure that's on there. They don't know if it's not on, like in this case for Melissa, what's not on this front and back piece of paper, I don't know anything else. This is what I'm looking at. So if she has a specific training that the position required and it's not listed on here, then I don't know that. So if it's required, most of the time we check off like they meet the education, the experience, this, and if they're missing one of those or multiple of those, then they're not gonna move forward in that process. So you wanna make sure if there's a minimum or required qualification section on the job posting, you wanna make sure that on your resume or cover letter, you've written that and demonstrate how you meet all of those different points. The last one is clearly stating your degree, school name, and earned or anticipated graduation date. So this is important. In today's world, most positions require some type of degree, training, certification, something of that sort. And so you want to make sure you're writing that on there on when you got that, what it is, who you got it from, to make sure that that's all right there. So if you just put, for accounting, if you just say, I have a bachelor's in accounting. Okay, well, when did you get it? Did you get it last year? Are you getting it this May? Are you getting it, 2 years ago you got it? What school did you get it from? Was it an online program? Was it, different things like that do make a difference for what an employer is looking for. So you want to make sure you clearly state all of those different things. And it's totally fine to have an anticipated degree, just making sure you write anticipated with the date so that they can know, okay, this person's still going to be in school for 6 months, which is great. Okay, does that work? Do they have the right certification for what we're looking for? So, do you want to do the next part?
Sure. So the next part we have is your resume and cover letter free of grammatical and spelling errors and in the correct verb tenses? So again, we're going back to some of those writing skills that we're trying to reinforce today, how important they are, that there's no grammatical errors and there's no spelling errors and you're writing in the same tense. So with regards to reviewing a lot of resumes and cover letters, you'd be surprised how many errors we do find in these documents. A lot of employers would find them and they'd move your resume right to the side. They won't even consider it. If you're working in a customer service type of responsibility, they want somebody who's able to write clearly, concisely, and accurately to all of their customers. And if they're finding that the document that you provided to them as your introduction to them has these errors, they're going to move it to the side. So make sure you are checking for those. Word does a great job at checking for errors and letting us know when there are some, but it doesn't catch every single one. So make sure you're reading through it yourself multiple times. Make sure you have a friend or family member that you trust to give you honest feedback, read through it as well. We'll have this down on the bottom, but I'm going to mention it now because I think I want to reinforce it twice because it's so important. I think this is a great skill to have even if you're writing papers here on campus, in your classes, whatever it might be. Read the paper out loud to yourself. Read your resume out loud to yourself. Read the cover letter out loud to yourself. Does it flow? Does it make sense? Am I using too many words? Is it clear? Is it concise? Are they going to understand what I'm trying to get across is what you want to kind of reinforce for yourself. So making sure that it's free of all those errors. You want it to be easy to read and in an organized layout. So somebody had mentioned that, as an example, Melissa's resume was a little easier to read. It flowed a little better. It was more organized. Sorry, no, John's was. I apologize. I'm looking at the wrong one. So he provided, the specific bullet points, which Melissa also had on here, of education, professional experience, that sort of thing. Years all on the side. Melissa's were not very well organized. The point that we want to get across here is making sure you're making it really easy for the person that's looking at this information to find it fast. Because you're potentially applying for positions that hundreds of other people are applying for. And when they're reviewing these resumes and they're trying to determine whether to move you forward or not, if they can't find out your degree and whether you earned it quickly, if you have the experience you need quickly, you're going to get pushed to the side. So it's really important to make sure your format and layout is very easy to read. One of the examples we also have on the sheet here is having a consistent font. So throughout your resume, you want to have a consistent font. It is okay to have headers that look slightly different because you want them to stick out. You want it to be, again, easy for that person to find it. But you definitely want it to be consistent and easy to read. So don't use Comic Sans. That's not an easy script to read for somebody who's looking at hundreds of resumes. Use the more standard sort of fonts for that. All right, is your resume and cover letter accurate and updated with current and relevant experience? So I'm gonna start out with make sure everything is accurate. So don't overextend the experience you might have. You wanna make sure everything that you have done is truthful on that resume and cover letter. You do not wanna provide any inaccurate information. And you also wanna make sure everything is updated and very relevant to the position. So we talked earlier about making sure you understand what they're looking for through the job description or through looking at different industry requirements. You want to make sure your writing style and the way that you are providing the information is relevant to that position, which also leads to potentially having a number of different resumes and cover letters for various positions that you're applying for. So that relevancy is really important. Also, is your resume and cover letter free of shorthand statements and abbreviations? So in other words, no text shortcuts. Use BEFORE for before instead of B and the number 4 as an example. Again, that goes to that professionalism and that clear communication. We don't want to assume the person on the other end knows what these abbreviations mean. Another example would be, you might potentially be graduating or have graduated from GRCC recently. Grand Rapids Community College is how you want to provide that information on your resume, not GRCC. Okay?
Yeah. So we've got some extra tips down at the bottom. So think like the employer. So think about, like we just had you do at the beginning of the session, what is that person looking for? What do they want? So take that job description, really read it, look into it, look at their company mission and values and all of that when you're really thinking about it, so that when you're writing your cover letter and resume, that you can be like, okay, if I was the employer looking at this, what am I looking for? To make sure you have those keywords in there, those key phrases. That again, like some positions, you might be up against, you know, a position might have 200 applicants and there's 1 or 2 openings. And so how are you gonna stand out and make sure that you've caught everything that that employer is looking for? There are other jobs where you might be an applicant of 4. So they're gonna take more time to look at each resume, but if you're in that pool of 200, it's a quick process to say, do they have the education? Do they have the experience? Do they have what I'm looking for? So you wanna have those key points on there. Always include your contact information, such as a phone number and a professional personal email address, which is really important, as I think was mentioned when we were doing the initial one, that on Melissa Smith's, her email is partygirl@email.com. Probably not the one you want a potential employer to be reading. Email accounts, you can get free email accounts from a whole slew of different providers. Create something professional and that's personal. So you shouldn't use a current job's email address to be job searching to other companies. If you're internally job searching, totally a different experience. But if you're searching to potentially leave the company, you want to make sure you're using a personal email account. So typically a Gmail, a Hotmail, a Yahoo, one of those, and something that's professional. A lot of people include their name in that, or a phrase that seems professional. I like when it has a name, because then I know as an HR person when I'm going to email them that I have it correct, that it's the right person. But something that it doesn't have to be your full name, like John Doe Jr. It can have parts of it. It could be initials, whatever that might be. But something that definitely is professional and your personal email account, and something that you check on a regular basis. Because if you've emailed them, then they're probably emailing you back if you've applied. A lot of companies are going towards email requests and emailing things versus calling, since that typically gets in contact a little bit faster, okay? So also, you know, we love quotes, we like putting images up, we love memes these days, but probably not the best thing to include in your resume or cover letter unless it's connected to your job. So if you're a graphic designer, for instance, which is the one we put on here, you might need to include a graphic or 2 that you've done, right? A lot of times for those positions, a portfolio might be required or something like that. But if it's not pertinent to your position that you're applying to, you shouldn't include it, even a picture of yourself. So you want them to look at what's on your resume and your cover letter, not the picture of you, just to kind of keep things equal. And a lot of places don't like that on there. And also the images, so there's no reason to include like a happy face or anything like that on it. We're hoping that you're happy that you're applying for a position. So just remembering those kind of things. And then, like Laura said earlier, and this is on here again, read your resume and cover letter out loud. So you read things out loud, different than when you're reading it in your head. To make sure that things sound right, that it flows. The other thing is, have a family member or a friend do it, or swap. If you have a friend who's also job searching or preparing their resume, swap with each other. Does this make sense? Compare it. That's always a great opportunity to kind of learn something. I read over people's resumes all the time and I'm like, oh, you know, that's a good way to put that, or that's a great thing to include on there, just to make sure that, you know, it makes sense to somebody else. It's also good to have somebody outside your field look at your resume and cover letter, because a lot of times, like if you're applying for an accountant job, HR is the first one to look at it. And so you want to make sure that everything on it, again, those acronyms aren't there, all those kinds of things, because for somebody in the accounting field, they're going to know most of the acronyms. But for somebody outside, we need to see the whole thing written out to know what it is. So those are kind of some of the tips to kind of have when you're looking through and writing your cover letter and resume. So questions on any of that?
Or anything related to resumes and cover
Yeah.
letters, not specific to what we talked about today.
Go ahead.
One thing I wondered about with the verb tenses, if you have a job and one of the things in your job was a one-time thing, but everything else is present, do you write that one-time thing in the present tense, or do you write that in the past tense?
So if it's your current job, write it in the present tense. If it was a past position, write it in the past tense.
Yeah, so that whole job each job should be written in one tense, not
Yeah.
back and forth. So, and that's a good point, because there are things that I've had jobs where like the focus of the position has changed, but I've always, if it's my current position, even if the focus has changed, I continue writing in the present until it becomes my past job, and then I switch that to the past tense. So, yeah,
Great question.
Other questions?
Has anybody applied for any jobs recently? What has your experience been with writing? You have? Yeah, what has your experience been? Anybody else writing resumes, cover letters? Haven't had to do it yet, so that's why you're here today? Yeah? Okay.
Actually, I'm here today for my English class, my 102 English.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I'm here rating that.
Rating us? Oh.
Oh boy.
Okay. Oh goodness. Makes me nervous now. No. Well, hopefully we're doing a good job.
Well, are you learning anything? Has there been anything that's been new that you didn't know about?
Well, I
With
feel a lot of helpful information.
a lot of helpful information?
Yeah.
Good.
One of the things I'll give it another tip is where we said when we talked about is your resume and cover letter accurate and updated with your current and relevant experiences. One of the things Laura and I talked about is that I keep kind of a running resume that I just always am adding to. I don't take anything away from it, but I just keep adding to it as one long list. And then when I go to apply for a job, I kind of cut and paste things out of that into one specific for that job, so that you're not losing that information or the historical information that maybe one day you'll need a 20-page resume. But in most cases, 1 to 2 pages is long enough. But you want to keep that information, keep all your dates, so that you don't have to just put a year because you forgot the month or the time of year you started. And so keeping a running resume that just keeps going, and you just keep adding, and and then you can make a resume for other things. Same thing with cover letters. You can have like some of your info laid out already on a cover letter template. Already written there, ready to go, and then you can have some of the key phrases you like to use depending on the type of job, some of the follow-up information you like to put in there, so then it's easier, especially because sometimes positions get posted and they're only posted in some companies 3 days, 5 days, or you see it and it's due the next day, so you're like, how do I get this ready? So you have a lot of things pre-written, and just making sure you're putting it together, rereading it out loud, making sure it's accurate, making sure it sounds good. So
There was another hidden tip in there too that I think was really good. I think it was hidden in there, but it was also just popping into my head. Also with writing your own resume and cover letter, if you haven't been keeping that ongoing list and you don't remember all of the responsibilities that you've had in previous positions or even in your current position, or you don't know how to verbalize it through writing what exactly you do, look at your own job description. Your job description will provide you with a basis of what the responsibility is that you do right now. So use that as a starting base. You probably are doing some of those other duties as assigned that is usually on a resume or on a job description as well. So you'll need to keep track of those yourself, but use your current job description or a past job description to help you with writing this. You don't have to reinvent that language all the time. It will help you with making that very clear. Because the way that we write job descriptions is to hopefully make it clear and concise to you exactly what your responsibility is going to be.
I also wanted to mention, so one of the things I mentioned in my last thing was about, I didn't know if this is where you were going to go, but is about page length.
Yes,
so,
thank you.
One of the things that you probably noticed is both of them, their resume and cover letter were each just on one side, right? Totally acceptable. But did you notice how Melissa stops very short on the page? Both of hers. And so we did talk about detail a lot, and some of that is up to the detail, but it's also just including more. Now, you don't want to put a bunch of fluff in or inaccurate information or kind of adding things just to add, but you want to try to make sure typically a resume should fill 3/4 to a page. And you don't want to do like a page and a quarter. You want to try to get it to be 1 full page or almost 2 full pages, okay? More than 2, most jobs, there's no reason to have more than 2 pages. Typically, I see that in faculty searches because you have to include all of your teaching experiences, all of your publications, all of those kinds of things. But for most jobs, I will say 90% of jobs, 2 pages should be your maximum. Again, you want something that, this isn't overly filled, or he could have stopped like here and it still would have been like a page. But this is like a nice amount. Same thing with the cover letter. You can tell this is short, 2 paragraphs. I mean, that's not a typical letter. We want to see something that's more like, 3 to 4 paragraphs, half page to 3/4. It makes it look like you took the time to do it. You've added more. Adding a lot of extra spaces is not the best choice either. You want to make sure that it looks like you took the time to write things out on there. Yeah. Hi.
What would you recommend for someone who doesn't have a work history?
Say that again.
What would you recommend for someone who doesn't have a work history?
Yeah, so some of the other things you can include, so the question was, what do you recommend for somebody who doesn't have a work history? There's other things that get you to the experience besides an actual job. So things like volunteering, things like working in a student organization, working on a student project outside of class that might occur. Helping with a church or an organization in the community. Those are all experiences that you can tailor the things underneath your bullet points to help show that why those are qualifications for the job you're applying to. Does that kind of help?
It does.
Okay.
One other item you could put on there, she mentioned projects that you work on with your classes, but also the coursework that you have completed that's relevant to the position. You don't want to add all of the classes that you've taken at CC or whatever other community college or university or what you took for your certification, but put things that are relevant to this position. So I think, did somebody put it? No, I thought that John Doe did it, but he just added
his computer and leadership opportunities.
Yeah. So I would just make it relevant. So for this position specifically, I would use math courses that you've taken. I would use the accounting courses that you've taken to add in the content that shows those that are reviewing your resume that you may not have the experience specifically in the workforce with this type of position, but you have the knowledge to be able to perform that work. Does that help? Okay.
Other questions? Yeah?
I noticed on both of these cover letters it says to whom it may concern. And I've basically been told not to use that.
That's funny. We were talking about that yesterday about the to whom it may concern. If they're in today's job searching world, it's less likely to find a contact person. Or like if you're on the GRCC human resource website, the contact for jobs is Kathy Kubiak, who's our director, right? She's probably not the one reviewing your resume in most cases, right? So a lot of times, like, you're not gonna find Laura and I's name, and we're probably the primary people that are reviewing them. So in a lot of cases, it's acceptable. You can also put things like dear hiring manager, dear selection team or selection committee. If you have a contact person's name or it says like this is the hiring person or the supervisor of the position, definitely want to use that and make it as personal. That shows that your attention to detail is there in your writing and your reading. But a lot of times, because everything is so digital and everything's on websites that you just click a link, it doesn't necessarily have, or it has a generic like hr@soandsocompany.com that you don't know who that contact person is. So it's kind of a mixed thing. I mean, like I said, if you can find a contact person, it's great to address it to that person. If you can't find the contact person, that's okay.
I think another good thing in that type of situation where you don't know who to address it to and you're not sure how to start that cover letter off, a good thing would be to look at the company's website. What type of company is it? What does the culture look like? Is it really laid back culture? Is it very professional culture where everybody's wearing a suit and tie every day? I'd make sure it was something that was very professional. To whom it may concern may be appropriate in that type of situation, but if you're applying to a position, I'll use Google for example, which we know has quite a laid back culture. To whom it may concern may not be the best way to address it. So kind of taking that into account as well. Just a regular interviewing tip, not necessarily specific to resumes and cover letters, is always review the company's website prior to applying for or being interviewed for a position, because they want to know that you researched them. They want to know that you have as much information about them as possible based on what they've provided for you to see on their website.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a few more minutes if we've got a few more questions.
Question here.
Oh.
Now,
Say that one. They require a what?
Require experience, you know. Most companies require experience, but I just get a degree. I don't have so many years working on experience. How make them hire me?
How can you get them to hire you? How can you get them to see you to say, I'm worth interviewing for this position? I might not have the years of experience they're requiring. Is that what you're saying? There's not, you don't have the years, but you have the degree. So that was kind of pointing to one of the questions we had back here. Start using some of the things like the coursework, the classes that you've completed, having those listed on there. You know, if you're applying to a position that is, let's say it is specific to customer service, but you know it's going to have a lot of data entry portion to it as well. Having those math classes on there that's showing that you're knowledgeable with numbers. Having the computer classes that you've completed, that you're knowledgeable with using computers and you can navigate around any computer software would be really important. The other thing that you can do is, while you don't have the experience to put on your resume, you can address that in your cover letter. So again, this is the way to introduce yourself to the employer. This is going to be their first opportunity to see who you are. It's okay to come out and say, I recognize I don't have the 5 years of experience that you are asking for this position. However, I believe I have equivalent experience because I've taken these classes, because I worked on these specific projects, because I've been in these leadership roles at a community college, whatever it might be. Let's say you were part of a organization here on campus and you started in the organization your first year and you became vice president the second year. That's going to show some leadership experience. So using some of those sorts of examples to help address that might help you get to that review. Okay? Does that make sense? All right. Anything else to add to that?
No, that was good.
Okay. Any other questions? We have maybe a minute or two to any pressing questions that you just want to know. Yeah.
I have a question. So like, if you're an employer, right, and applying for the job, so I have been working for a long time with so many different jobs. In my resume, which, how many, like, I have been working 5 places, 6 places, do I have to tell all that story in my resume? Or just is it good to put out only just couple things in a resume?
Are they 5 jobs you're working at the same time, or you just
I just switch every month or every year. So do I have to
Great
put
question.
all those history in my resume?
Yeah. So my rule of thumb would be always include your current, because you want to show that if you are currently employed, you want to show what your current employment is. But also whatever is relevant beyond that. So if your current job is relevant and you're there currently, I'd put that on there. Your previous job right before that isn't. You had a completely different role, wouldn't have anything to do with it. You don't necessarily need to provide that detail then, but that third job did. I would provide that. Now, I'm going to give you a tip here, because what that would do if you only provide your current and the not most recent, but the previous before that, so let's say it's your 3rd and 5th job that you're going to be including, it's going to show a break in employment. So another way you can get around showing that you didn't have that break in employment is to have actually a section on here that would be, actually John did it. So this is a really great way to see it now that I'm looking at this. So John had his professional experience. So he identified those 2 positions that were very relevant to what he did in that role. Then he showed, these are the other positions that I've held. He didn't provide any of the details of what he did in those jobs because it wasn't relevant to what he's applying for, but he showed I had other positions. I have continued to progress in my professional experience. Does that help? Okay.
Also, like if I apply for a job, I kind of told you all my history and everything. I guess you like my resume is 3 pages. I got kind of write all of my history, like education and school, all of my work history. Is as employer, you're gonna just hire 10 people, 20 people, or 5 people. You you're gonna kind of read through people where easy way they explain with the short writing. Some kind of, well, I'm not a good writer, I'm not a good speaker, something I just kind of just explain with a bunch of different words. Well, I did this with long way. If you ask the employer, which one are you gonna hire first? Where I kind of write a little short resume, kind of explain with the short way, or you're gonna go with a long, a bunch of writing and reading all of this page. Which one are you gonna choose? It take you to go through the 5-10 minutes. Another one take you 2 minutes to go through.
Yeah. So part of the question is, who would I hire out of these two? Is kind of what you're asking me, because one's short and the other one's really long. Let's say this was 3 pages long. I'm okay with this because it provides me with all of the information I need without providing me with fluff, with stuff that I don't, that I need to weed through to find out what you're trying to tell me. This gives me exactly what I need to know that you have the experience. The concern with this resume is it doesn't tell me enough. So what you want to focus on with your writing is being very clear with your experience, but also concise. So not having a lot of additional language in there, additional words in there that aren't necessary for the employer or the person reviewing this resume to decide whether or not you have the experience. Does that help?
So if you're
with that
employer,
piece?
you typically read through what in a resume, right?
Yeah.
If you hire, you're right now, what is your current job is, whatever I put in a resume, you go through it, right?
So I'll give you my tip about what I do for reviewing resumes, because I imagine companies do it very differently. Some companies have systems that will search for words when you apply for jobs. The system will look in the documents to make sure you use those keywords that we talked about in your checklist. And if you don't have those keywords in there saying that you have that experience, that system is kicking you out. You're not even going to get into the hands of a person to review the resume. We don't use that type of a system here. We do physically read through all of our resumes. But my process, because I sometimes receive hundreds of applicants for a position, and we only have one position, I only have so much time, and we're running a number of searches at the same time, and we have other responsibilities that we have too. So again, keeping the person that's doing this in mind, making it easy for them to find things. But what I do is I look for my requirements first. If I am requiring a degree and we can't make any exception to that, for instance, a faculty position, we require a master's degree, and that's for our accreditation purposes. We cannot make exceptions to those. If you don't have that master's degree listed in your resume, that's the first thing I'm looking for, and I'm automatically removing you from that list, because I'm not even going to read through the other 3 pages of information that you have if you're not going to meet the minimum of those requirements, if that helps. So I look for education first, I look for experience, and then I'll look for other qualifications that aren't necessarily years. You know, you're looking, does this person have experience in customer service? I'll look through the information in your resume and determine, yes, they do. Or no, they don't. So that helps.
I can use the tip. I work on time. I always organize the document. I can show them too or no?
Well, you can organize a document. What was the question? I'm sorry.
Not that I can give the tip. I always work on time and always organize for the document that I can write down too.
You can. Those are some of the skills you want to include.
Oh,
Yeah, you
okay.
can definitely
Yeah,
include that under a position, or some people do, especially going back to the questions of like if you don't have the experience adding up, some people have skills sections on their resume to talk about that I'm organized, all those kinds of things. That's definitely an option. But I do want to be cognizant of time because I think we were.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Sorry.
So, any last minute things?
I did. I wanted to point out one more thing because I didn't do this in the beginning. I think it's really important for all of you to know. So we had reviewed these 2 resumes, and we determined who we would be interested in moving forward for an interview. It was, I think, a resounding decision that they would move this individual forward because of the information they provided in the resume. What's really important for you to know in this session is these people are the same people. So they have the same exact experience. They just wrote the information differently. So that's why it's so important for you to have excellent writing skills to be able to gain employment for the future.
Yeah.
So.
We can definitely stick around for a few minutes.
I'm happy to stay around and
but
answer any
thank you all for
questions.
coming. We really appreciate it, and we're happy to stick around if you guys have any questions.
So please come up and ask.
Yes.
Oh,